We've been exploring some of the different lance tactica in Battletech, starting with a general lance, looking at a support lance, a recon lance, saving the best for last, assault mechs. An assault lance, how to operate that in Battletech. So there's this idea of, with an assault lance, very high battle value. Even if you go on the lower end of assault mechs, it's going to add up very, very quickly, whether that's a low battle value game, mid, or high. So what this means is we need to be very, very decisive and direct with an assault lance. It needs to be out there earning. I mean, think about a third of your battle value, if it's a good-sized game, tied up in 4 machines sitting in your deployment zone hanging out. You're literally going to be completely outnumbered and not leveraging the factor of that assault lance. So the first entry point, in my opinion, regardless of the mechs that you select, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be motivated, and we're going to force our opponent to deal with this lance. It's going to take a lot of damage. It's going to take a lot of focus. But the two things that we're trying to do with an assault lance is deal equal or greater damage before it gets taken out, and tie up as much of the opposing forces as possible. So, in my opinion, an assault lance is not, as a mech commander, not something that we just kind of send out, because what is the rest of my battle group doing? What are my other lances, my combined arms, my hovers, my warriors, my infantry? If I can take that assault lance and have the duality of dealing a ton of damage, while at the same time forcing you to pull off more units, forcing you to gang up 2 or 3 lances on my one lance, then I need to be mobilizing the rest of my battle force, my battle group, to deal with you. So it's a duality. It's not just about dealing damage, although that's important. It's about what else can I do for area control and tabletop map, hex map influence. Now, the mechs itself, in my opinion, I want close-in mechs. Mechs that are going to have close-in weaponry. I'm not looking to stay back. In my opinion, it's more of a support lance. I want to use all that tonnage and get up there really close. That doesn't mean a machine like a Stalker doesn't have value. On the way in, it's going to be using those missiles. Then it's going to switch to the shorter range, the large lasers, then to the medium lasers, and just blast you away. But mechs like a Victor, that's close-in work. Mechs like a Banshee, where I'm going to be moving in to engage, pop off 1 or 2 shots at long range, but then I want to be really, really close. In my opinion, an assault lance wants to get up there and mix it up, because I want to use that tonnage also for physical attacks. I want to be punching you. I want to be kicking you. A 1 in 6 chance on the punch chart to deal double-digit damage to your head just to knock your head off. That is extremely powerful. So if I'm getting up that close, I'm not going to be using PPCs and LRMs. I want to be using shorter work stuff. Whether I take those mechs and put them in location of weapons where I can punch or arm, I leave that for the side, but generally speaking, I want to have my hands free. Getting up there, because the way an assault lance works is it doesn't have the speed, it doesn't have the battle value to be zipping all around. That's what the recon lance is for. So I can't chase down a target. Let's say there's an opposing lance over in your deployment zone. If I run my assault lance up to your lance, you could say, look, I'm not going to engage. I'm going to run away. I'm going to run to the opposite side of the hex map. Okay, so now I'm chasing you down. Maybe I'm firing off a PPC or some lasers here and there, but I'm burning turns chasing you. What we need to do with an assault lance at the beginning of the game, modified, of course, by the mission, modified, of course, by the hex map itself, what are those breakthrough areas? What are those areas on the hex map that your opponent cannot afford to give or acquiesce to you? That's where my assault lance is going. If it's a building I have to capture, right? City Fight, City Tech, capture the power plant, capture the hospital, capture the landing field. Go. I'm sending that assault lance to one of those points to just camp on there, because you're going to have to defend it. I'm going to have targets to leverage. I'm going to have targets that have to deal with that. So pick a point that's natural. If it's a kind of fight everybody last mech standing, Are there places of good cover, of good terrain? That's where my opponent is going to have to gather. That's where I send the assault lance. So you're going to need to have a place to point and click ahead of time, looking at the mission, looking at the hex map, as opposed to, oh, let me just chase stuff down and see what I can grab. When you can magnify that, then you start to really be able to bring that tactica. And again, this idea, modified by mechs a little bit, but this idea of my assault lance needs to be blasting, burning, destroying, at a minimum equal, but hopefully greater battle value, but things happen and the dice aren't always that great. Dealing damage, but at the same time forcing my opponent to pull off other stuff, to commit 2 or 3 times the battle value to stopping this assault lance, and then the other assets in my battle group being able to capitalize in terms of movement, rear armor, flanking, mission objectives, to have that breathing room, that tactica to do that.